Papá me lo explicaba siempre. No se lo olviden que tu apellido y la gente vienen de las Canarias.
There are so many people. When you start talking to people, if their family has been in Louisiana, in South Louisiana, for several generations, then odds are they're going to have a Canary Island descendant or an Acadian descendant in their bloodlines. It was that prevalent. Here in Baton Rouge, the settlers that left Galvez in 1804, the Galvez Town settlement of Canary Islanders, settled in what is called Spanish Town here in Baton Rouge. So even in this British part of Louisiana, we find many descendants that are, Ilanios. And when you go south of here along the river and along Bayou Lafourche, if your families have been there, I would say 80 to 90% of them are going to have married into or out of the Canary Island culture. So it's very prevalent along the bayou, as evidenced by the names.
I have 3 ancestors that came from the Canary Islands. In the first wave of ancestors, the Manuel Dominguez came with his children. Francisco Carbo came with his family, and Francisco Sanchez actually was from Gran Canaria. I'm Rocky Jobs Jr.
My name is Joan Aleman. I was born in White Castle, Louisiana, and am a direct descendant of the Canary Islanders who came to Louisiana in 1778. In addition to that, some of those people sold their lands along the bayou and moved into what is called the Brûlés. And in that area, there's the places like Pierre Port, Brûlé St. Martin, Brûlé St. Vincent. And in those areas, Canarians lived. And many of the people who live there, a large percentage of those people who live in those areas, are descendants of Canary Islanders.
Yo soy Lloyd Wimpy Sereñé y tengo 76 años, o hace 77 en un mes. Pero me nací en la isla de la Cruz y soy descendiente de Canarias.
My name is Paul Newfield, but they call me Skip. And I'm a descendant of Canary Islanders. That goes back probably about 7 generations or so is when my ancestors arrived in Louisiana. This is primarily on my mother's side of the family. Otherwise, I'm of French and German and Acadian heritage. But the Canary Islanders comes from my mother's side, back to one of the ships that came to Louisiana. If someone asks me, are you Canario? I say, no. Isleño? No. Do I descend from them? Yes. Do I celebrate their heritage? Yes. But I'm not a I'm not an Acadian. I'm not, if anything else, I'm a New Orleanian. That's who I am. And but it's like a gumbo, or it's a little bit of everything thrown into the pot together.
My name is Wade Falcon. I'm 40. I live and I was born and raised in Lafayette, Louisiana, and I'm a Canary Island descendant. I descend from the Islanders that came to Louisiana in the 18th century.
My name is Bertha Domain Bernard. I was born here in Lafayette, Louisiana. I'm 79 years old, and I'm of Canarian descent from the island of Tenerife.
My name is Chad LeBlanc. I'm 43. I was born here in Pierreport, Louisiana, and I'm a Canary Island descendant. Yeah, so I belong to the Canary Islanders Heritage Society of Louisiana, which is in Baton Rouge. I discovered the society probably about 12 years ago or so. There was an article in the paper, and I knew that I had Canary Island ancestry, so I was interested in the group.
I was 40 years old when I found out I was of Canarian descent. My dad wanted to have a family reunion and wanted to invite all of his cousins, people I didn't know. So I decided I wanted to have some kind of a family tree up on display so that people could understand how we're all connected. In doing that research, I found that I was not French at all. I was 100% Spanish. Spanish of Canary Islanders who came to Louisiana in 1778. One upon the San Juan Nipissimo, one upon the Loyola, and was very surprised to find I was Spanish, and also very happy to find out I was Spanish.
Well, I'm an American, and that's really how I identify myself. But how I feel inside, as far as where my family is concerned, I feel that I'm Canarian.
I visited the Canaries in 1998, and when I got there, I felt like I was at home. The people I met looked a lot like people I know in Louisiana. Those genes are very strong. I saw people who looked like my mother, some who looked like my sisters, my cousins, everywhere I went. And then the warmth of the Canarian people reminded me of people in Louisiana.
My name is Dorothy Louise O'Toole Benge. I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana in 1933. I am now 83 years old, and I am a Canary Island descendant. I am Isleña.
My name is Dennis Patrick Delaney. I'm 64, I just made it yesterday. I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I'm a Canary Island descendant. As a matter of fact, I come from all four settlements. At least my ancestors were in all four settlements.
Valenzuela was one of the four original settlements that the Canarians were placed at when they got to Louisiana. They picked that location because it was near where Bayou Lafourche came off the Mississippi River. So it was a strategic point to defend, Baton Rouge or defend the river from that area. I know that the people lived along Bayou Lafourche, kind of in strips of land coming off the bayou, and they were farmers. I know that eventually in time they sold their land as the sugarcane plantations came in and they wanted the land for planting sugarcane. The people sold their land and they started moving outward from the bayous into more inland areas and eventually ended up here in Pierreport. Yeah, so the difference in the settlements was basically that in St. Bernard, the Isleños were isolated. There was no one else around, no other people moved into that area. So they were able to retain their culture and their language for a long period of time. Whereas the Isleños in Valenzuela, they were a very small group of people that within just a few years were surrounded by lots and lots of Acadians that spoke French. And so I think that the Isleños got assimilated into the French culture and they picked up their language. What's interesting though is that, people here don't speak real French. There's a lot of words that are different in Cajun French than real French. And some of those words actually are kind of more Spanish than they are French. So I think there was kind of a blending of the languages, especially with like colloquialisms and, slang, things like that.
When I look at the people that came to Louisiana, I know that they had 700 soldiers that came prepared to get into the American Revolution. Although this was a war between Spain and England, but nonetheless, these 700 soldiers were here to what we know later on as the American Revolutionary War.
It was very bad because as a location, strategic location, excellent. For habitation for long-term periods with the floods, the rains, the Indians, the diseases, it was very, very, very difficult. And the people in Valenzuela on the other side, on the other hand, had a much easier time because they didn't have all these climatological crises that occurred every time they had a hard rain and the river rose.
Valenzuela was one of the four settlements that the Canarians, where the Canarians originally settled. Valenzuela was down by Lafourche, below Donaldsonville. It was near where the Bayou Lafourche intersects with the Mississippi River. And they started out at Valenzuela, which is down that settlement. People from many, many, many surnames, Canarian surnames, live there. Their descendants live there today, some still on the original land that was granted to their ancestors. And those people go from where they started at Valenzuela, some are in the city of Donaldsonville, some of them all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico along the Gulf. They've finally ended up down there. So those surnames go all the way down by Lafourche.
You gotta admire what they did, like Galvez. We wouldn't have been here, if Galvez didn't have a relative in the Canary Islands, that needed something for the people. I mean, he had a blight on the Malvasa crop or something, and then they also had, whether his father or something was viceroy in Mexico. So we wouldn't have been here without those connections, and we might have lost the American Revolution without Galvez, because it was the Canary Islands. That's been underplayed. The Spanish were good settlers. That's why when they brought people over in the ships, there were well-supplied ships. You didn't hear too many dying on the ships. That's because they cared about that. And this, and as you well know, the French Quarter is really Spanish Quarter.
That's kind of buried in the records, but I was able to puzzle it out by reading the Libros Maestros, because it showed there's a notation that says "hijo se muerte," just child died, the mother died, the father died. So you can you can be able to capture the devastation that happened from the Libros Maestros.
St. Bernard is the only settlement that has really survived and maintained its cultural identity. St. Bernard Isleños are the last living vestige of Spanish Louisiana. Very proud of that.
How fascinating it was to learn that they left their families. They left them for reasons to do something with their lives better than what they had. They took an opportunity that the government provided them to come to the New World. And they left all their possessions in the hopes that one day they'd come back, not knowing they would never come back. And that's really very personal to me, that they weren't planning to stay here, and then they ended up having no choice and they stayed here. So.
It's impacted my life tremendously because it's given me an opportunity to learn more about who I am, where I came from, to learn more about my ancestors, the people who were so brave to cross that ocean back in 1778-79 time frame, spend all that time on that ocean to come to an unknown land. And when they got here, they were settled in areas that were full of swamps. And I personally can't imagine making that voyage. Many of our ancestors were very young. Many of them women were pregnant. Some even had babies aboard the ship on their way here. I can't imagine that. They had a lot of strength, a lot of courage. They had a desire of adventure, to want to do something new and go new places. And I love that in people. I believe my strength comes from those roots.
Tengo sangre de canario, mi tatarabuelo era de Canarias, pero antes que yo me mudara con el hurricane, sí, había mucha gente que hablaba español, todos en la isla hablaban español.
En la casa hablamos español y todo el pueblo hablamos español. Y cuando dimos a escuela, entonces tenemos que hablar inglés. Porque los profesores dicen que no hablan español, hablan inglés. Y tenemos que aprender todo en inglés. Pero cuando salimos de la escuela, todo era español. Cuando nosotros fuimos a Nueva Orleans, a vez en cuando, la gente decía que nosotros éramos bobos porque no hablábamos en inglés muy bien, pero español nomás. Y, bueno, hablamos en inglés, pero tenemos un acento y eso, y hacían burla a nosotros en la ciudad de Nueva Orleans.
I think it had to do a lot with Teddy Roosevelt wanting everybody to speak English. You will find in school, whether you spoke German or French, if you spoke that language, and they wanted people to speak English. I can understand that. But it went the opposite way, because if a man's making 75 cents an hour and your kid just got fined 25 cents for speaking a foreign language. Well, that's a big deal. So they didn't completely lose the culture, because fortunately a lot of people are still alive that experienced their grandparents speaking Spanish. You know, even in Bayou Lafourche, even though you had the Acadian culture there, there was a lot of Acadians and Isleños on Bayou Lafourche that married each other.
Yo siempre hablo español, papá, español. Él no habla inglés. No, él no aprendió inglés. Pero en la escuela no podía usar español. Tenemos que hablar inglés.
Bueno, pues es que hay ahora, yo pienso por ahí 40 a lo más, porque los Alfonso García, José García todavía lo habla, y toda la familia de Alfonso, Enrique Martínez, él lo habla en todo ello, y por ahí, a lo más 40.
I mean, when I was a child, they spoke Spanish, but only when they did not want the children to understand what they were saying. So evidently there was a stigma at that time. English was the predominant language, and that's what I guess everyone wanted that to be permeated, and they did not want the Spanish to be permeated. Now we see that that wasn't very wise, and I guess there was a stigma at that time.
I believe it's important for all people to find the connections with their family and their family roots. I also feel it's very important that not only do I document what it is that I'm finding with my ancestors, but that I can pass this on to my children and I can help others that are also Canary Island descendants.
We still go to the schools to do programs, and because the first year we had a group from the Canary Islands, we went down to the school in Delacroix Island, and and all of those people down there is Isleños, and they had this in the auditorium. It's, you know, all the kids and everything. So I got up and I introduced the group, and I said, now tell me, how many of you all are Isleños? Nobody raised their hands. Nobody. And so I said, well, how many of you are named Alfonso? And the hands start going up. Rodriguez. And, you know, Acevedo. I went through all the names. I said, you see, all of you all are Isleños. So that's how it began. Nobody knew about us, you know.
Yeah, I think in the future it'll keep growing. I think the awareness will spread. And I think more people will be more aware that they have the Canary Island ancestry. And hopefully, you know, the group in Baton Rouge is roughly about half the age of the group in St. Bernard. So I'm hoping that in time that maybe, you know, we can eventually have our own festival in Baton Rouge and kind of do our own thing to promote, kind of, you know, evolve as the group there evolved.
Fiesta, oh my goodness, that is the highlight of our year, the festival. This will be our 40th festival this year. And it's every year it gets bigger and better. And it's a family festival. It's Spanish cooking,
Canary Island cooking, empanadillas, croquetas, paella, ropa vieja. That's what we serve, and we cook it all ourselves. The importance of the museum is to preserve our heritage and our culture. That is the goal. And we've done that, I think. We've tried very hard. It started out with just the one building. I think, that was always my goal, to spread the Isleño word far and wide. And I think we've done that. I have high hopes, for the future of the Isleños.
I am proud because they came, they did their job, they stayed, and even after the obligation was over, when Spain no longer controlled the area, they liked the territory of Louisiana. It's important because I don't think a life is really full until you know where you're coming from and what the other people experienced, what they had to go through, how they became who they were, and that's reflected in a certain way as to what you become. I'm just glad they stayed, and I'm able to live my life here.
Thank you so much. It has been great.
It's been great having y'all here. I've enjoyed it. I hope we meet again.
Oh, it has been great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
No se la olviden que tu apellido y la gente vienen de las Canarias.